Hello everyone. Let's see how do we derive the formulas for solving problems involving forces acting on reciprocating parts of an engine, neglecting the weight of the connecting rod. Okay. So this diagram shows you a rough sketch, a vector force balance of all the forces that are generated during the functioning of an reciprocating engine. So if you see, there are n number of forces available here. Fp is the gas pressure force, Fn is the normal reaction force given by the slider on the walls, Fq is another force that acts along the connecting rod length, and this Fq has two components, Ft crank pin effort and Fb thrust on the bearings. So we have a lot of forces to think about, and W is the weight of the sliding parts. So let's look into this one by one. Don't worry if you are unable to remember everything what I have said now. Various forces acting on reciprocating parts of a horizontal steam engine. The same diagram is given here. Okay. So what are all the forces we are going to derive? Let's see it one by one. So piston effort Fp, forces acting along the connecting rod Fq, thrust on the cylinder walls, sides of the cylinder walls Fn, it is a reaction force, crank pin effort Ft, thrust on the crankshaft bearing Fb. So here I would like to add that this Ft and Fb are the two components of Fq. Okay, so this force is for this line is further extended here, and it has two components. So one is Ft and one is Fb. So this Fq has two components, Ft and Fb. Why we are again resolving the two? Because they have distinct effects on the engine parts. So that's why we are resolving it. Let's see it in greater detail when we are doing that. So torque on the crankshaft. Okay. So eventually the torque is what is the aim of operating an engine, to give the torque on the crankshaft. That is the end result that I want. So the torque will drive your wheels. It will drive the flywheel, and the flywheel will in turn will drive everything in your transmission. Okay. Expression for various forces are derived as follows. The important thing you have to remember here is we are neglecting the weight of the reciprocating parts. We are considering them to be weightless, right? And that is a very important assumption we are making here, and in many cases such assumptions prove conservatively okay for practical uses. So it is good to do something like that. It makes the calculations simpler. Okay, so let us start. First thing I am going to derive is piston effort. The net force acting on the piston crosshead pin, that is your gudgeon pin, along the line of stroke is called piston effort and is denoted by F suffix P, Fp. Okay. So now I have given you a formula here. Fp is equal to Fl plus or minus Fi plus or minus Wr minus Rf. Okay. Let us see one by one what are all these things. So only this Fp is what? It is what I am deriving here. Fp is piston effort. Now that piston effort is equal to Fl plus Fi plus W plus something, right? Let us see what are all these things one by one. So Fl is the load on the piston. Okay. So this first term of the formula Fl is nothing but load on the piston. Fi is the inertia force due to the reciprocating parts of the engine. Okay, Fi is inertia force, and Wr is the weight of the reciprocating parts. That is the third term of your formula, Wr. Okay, and finally this Rf is the frictional resistance offered by all the moving parts put together within the engine. Okay, Rf, frictional resistance. So if all these things, if I combine all these things, Rf is the frictional resistance. Okay, so when I combine all these things in a definite way, I get the value Fp, piston effort. Okay, so now if you carefully look into the formula, you can see that I am not having a plus or just a minus, I am having plus or minus, which means the general formula does not tell you this friction is always minus, no problem, but the other two terms, inertia force and the weight of the reciprocating parts, are not clearly indicated in the formula, whether you have to put a plus or a minus, and it is left to the judgment of the person who is solving the problem, whether to use a plus sign or a minus sign. We will see where to put plus and where to put minus when we are doing the problems. Okay, so now let's get these terms into our mind very clearly. Clear? So FL is the load on the piston, Fi is the inertia force, Wr is the weight of the reciprocating parts, and Rf is the frictional resistance. Right? So now first let us see what is this load on the piston. I am going to explain these things one by one. What are all these things? 1, 2, 3. See, this does not need an explanation. This does not need an explanation. You have to understand these two very well. Okay, so that you are able to solve problems involving piston effort. Clear? First let us see what is load on the piston. Okay, so that's what I am going to see here. Load on the piston. Right? Let us look into this diagram. Okay, so I am having a piston load on the piston, some FL is acting on the piston, and due to this load only your piston is reciprocating. Where does this FL come from? I am putting some fuel into the engine and I am making it to undergo combustion, or I am bringing some steam which has already imported with a lot of enthalpy and is expanded into the engine. Somehow I am giving some pressure on the piston. Okay, so because of which your piston is moving to the right. Now if I know what is the pressure that is arising inside the cylinder, then if I multiply the cross-sectional area of the pressure imparted on the piston with the cross-sectional area of the cylinder A1, okay, then I can tell what is this force acting on the piston. Correct? In case there is some negative reverse pressure also available this side, in many cases in steam engines there will be some pressure available on the back side, back pressure will also be available. In such cases I can find out a difference between these two. What is the pressure on the negative side, what is the pressure on the positive side, multiply the areas. In most cases A1 and A2 will be equal, then I can find out this. Okay, so just look at the diagram, we can look into the expressions later. Then if you have a double acting steam engine, then the steam is also supposed to, the steam is pumped on both the sides. Okay, steam is given from here into the engine, and also when the piston is reaching the rightmost position, steam is also given from here, so that the piston is pushed in this direction. That is a double acting steam engine. Okay, so in such cases double acting steam engine, then you have to remember that the area available for the forward stroke is the entire area A1, but area available for the reverse stroke is lesser due to the presence of this connecting rod. Okay, so for a double acting steam engine I have to consider the connecting rod area and is to be subtracted from the A1 or A2. In most cases this A1 and A2 will be equal. So writing down the formula for a single acting cylinder, P1 A1 minus P2 A2, this P2 means some back pressure that is arising due to many other reasons. This is predominantly for a steam engine, there will be some back pressure. IC engines this back pressure will be very negligible, but for we are studying about steam engines. Okay, P1 A1 minus P2 A2 for a single acting cylinder, when steam is given on only one side of the piston. For a double acting cylinder, the FL load on the piston is equal to pressure input P1 A1 minus steam is also given in from the other side. Okay, if you remember, for a double acting, for a single acting cylinder, steam input is only given here, so the piston moves down. For a double acting cylinder, steam, when the piston reaches the rightmost ODC, outer dead center, steam is also given in from here and the piston is pushed backwards, so that you have two power strokes in one single movement of the piston up and down. In such cases, the effective cross sectional area available for the steam to act on the lower side of the piston is lesser compared to this side because you have a connecting rod in the middle. Now let us say this small a is the area of the connecting rod. Now I have to subtract this small a from this A2. So that is the area available for this steam pressure P2 to act, which is given on the lower side of the piston. So therefore for a double acting steam engine, what I am doing, P1 A1 minus P2 into A2 minus A, where A is the area of this connecting rod, which is reducing the effective area available for the steam to act on the lower side. We cannot avoid the connecting rod. So therefore always for a double acting cylinder, the lower side area is inherently lesser. Okay, so that is the load on the piston for a double acting cylinder. Okay, so I think you have understood that. So next is the inertia force. So we have seen what is FL. Now we are going to see what is FI. Inertia force we already seen, F is equal to m into A by Newton's second law. So acceleration of the reciprocating parts, we have already derived this formula, right? A acceleration of the reciprocating parts is equal to omega square r into cos theta plus cos 2 theta divided by n. Now if I multiply the mass with this acceleration, I am going to get a force, correct? So acceleration force or inertia force of the reciprocating parts is equal to mass into acceleration, mr into ar. So therefore what you do, you just multiply this acceleration equation with the mass of the part, reciprocating parts, mass of the reciprocating parts. That's what is written here. Okay, if I do that, then what will happen? F equal to m into a will become a force. That force is inertia force. Okay, so therefore what I am getting, Fi equal to mass into acceleration. In place of this acceleration I am going to write this entire formula. Therefore you just multiply this equation with mass of the reciprocating parts, so you get mass into acceleration is the formula for finding the inertia force. Okay, so where mr is the mass of the reciprocating parts. Okay, in case of a horizontal steam engine, reciprocating parts are accelerated from rest during the first half of the cycle, that is from IDC to ODC, and retarded during, I think this is wrong. See, you just imagine like this. What you have seen here, the to and fro movement of the engine, the piston starts to accelerate. Okay, so initially the piston was at rest when it reaches here, I mean near the inner dead center or top dead center. The piston comes to rest here, correct? It cannot go further, it comes to rest. Now steam is pushing the piston back, it starts slowly gaining velocity. Okay, so at the midpoint it reaches a maximum velocity and then it slowly starts losing velocity. Okay, and the velocity becomes 0 here again because it has to reverse, it comes to a stop here. So if you put the linear position of the piston and plot the velocity of the piston, it will be maximum somewhere near here this place, and it will becomes minimum again. So this could be linear or it could be something like this, whatever, it doesn't matter. What I mean to say is maximum velocity is here, almost at the midpoint of the stroke. Okay, so almost at the midpoint of the stroke I have a maximum velocity. Here the velocity will be 0, here the velocity will be 0. Now keeping this in mind, why should I look into this, why should I know this, is that we have plus or minus symbols in the formula, correct? Now how to decide whether I should add the inertia force to the load on the piston or subtract it from the load on the piston? Now that is to be decided based on this thing. Okay, so how should you decide this? If my piston is accelerating, what will the inertia do? We have already seen in the introduction to inertia. Inertia always resists a change in the state. If you are in rest, inertia will try to move you. Okay, if you are in motion, inertia will, if you are in rest, inertia will resist, it will not let you to move. If you are in motion, it will not let you to stop. So whatever you do, inertia will try to do the opposite. If this is what you are trying to do, I am trying to put some steam into an engine and I am trying to get some effective work out of it, inertia will try to slow you down, correct? So that is inertia. Therefore when my piston is accelerating, inertia will try to slow down the piston. when my piston is decelerating, inertia will try to push the piston further outward out of the engine. So that is inertia. Okay, it's very simple. When, let us say, let us talk in terms of crank angle. This is 0 degree crank angle, this is 90 degree crank angle. Okay, finally here this is 180 degree crank angle. So if I plot a velocity curve, my velocity will be maximum at 90 degree and then it will go down and become 0 at the. Why does it become 0? Because it has to return from there and start traveling in the opposite direction. For that it has to come to rest. Therefore velocity is maximum here. So in this particular segment of 0 to 90 degree of theta values, okay, your piston is trying to move faster, therefore inertia will slow you down. So if your theta value ranges between 0 to 90, use a negative symbol here. Okay, if your theta is 0 to 90, negative Fi. That is how you have to decide what symbol to take. If your theta for the given problem is between 90 to 180, your piston is trying to slow down, therefore your inertia will push you further. Therefore there you have to add the inertia force. Inertia force will not let you stop. If I hit a sudden brake in a car, the car is not stopping within the line, it is not allowing me to stop within this finish line or end line or some other obstacle, and it creates an accident. Inertia creates accident. Why do you wear seat belt? You don't want to move further and hit in the front of the dashboard compartment because of the inertia of motion your body possesses. Okay, so let's make it very simple so that it will be easy for you to solve the problems. I am going to segregate movement of the piston into two segments. 0 degree theta, crank position I am talking. Okay, this is crank position theta. Always crank position is theta, don't forget. 90 degree is the midpoint of TDC to BDC movement, ODC to IDC. This is 180 degree. Finally ODC position, from here to here piston is accelerating, therefore I get a negative inertia force. From here to here piston is decelerating, therefore I get a positive inertia force. Very simple clue for this. Always inertia will try to do the opposite of what your actual movement. Your actual movement is increasing, inertia will decrease. Your actual movement is decreasing, inertia will increase. So the opposite sense of symbol is to be chosen. That is why the formula gives you plus or minus. Okay, so I think that sort of explanation is enough here. Let's keep moving. So therefore what I do, I take this m into r. Okay, so in case of a horizontal steam engine, the reciprocating parts are accelerated from rest during the first half of the cycle. Now this first half of the cycle means 0 to 90 degree. Okay, so this is not first half of the cycle, means theta of 0 to 90 will give you a negative inertia. Now this is not correct. Okay, first half of the cycle, 0 degree to 90 degree, mid span of the piston movement from left to right, will get a negative inertia because your piston is accelerating. Similarly 90 to 180, will get a positive inertia. You should add the inertia force. Okay, similarly when the piston returns back from 180 to 360, what will happen? From 180 to 270, the piston will try to accelerate in the reverse stroke. It will start increasing the speed, 180 to 270 theta value. What will happen? You will get a negative inertia. Okay, because your piston is increasing its speed. Now finally after 270 degree up to 360 degree, back to the top dead center or inner dead center, piston will slowly slow down, decelerate and come to rest when it reaches the topmost position. Therefore 270 to 360, you will have a, since your piston is trying to slow down, inertia will try to speed you up, therefore you will have a positive inertia. So that is the meaning of this plus or minus in the formula, right? Clear? You can make a note of this. It's very simple. It is going to vary on a case to case basis depending on the question. Please remember that. Okay, so let's keep this out. This is not correct. So that's because of these sentences you will get confused. Let's leave this out of discussion. You can make a note of what I have told earlier. Okay. In case inertia acts in opposite sense to the gas pressure, resist motion of the piston when the piston is tending to accelerate, and it aids in the motion while the piston is tending to decelerate. That's what I told earlier, right? That's the same point being repeated. Clear? Okay, let's move on. So piston effort equal to net load on the piston plus or minus inertia. So if frictional losses in the cylinder are considered, then friction is always trying to slow you down, right? Doesn't matter whether you are trying to move in the same direction or opposite direction, friction always acts opposite to you. So that is always a minus. Okay. The plus or minus preceding the inertia force denotes that the sense of inertia force keeps changing, and in the case of positive sign it is used in front of Fi when the piston is retarding, and negative sign is used in the case of piston is accelerating. We have explained this very clearly, right? In case of a vertical engine, the weight of the reciprocating parts assists the piston effort during the downward stroke and opposes during the upward stroke. It's very simple to understand, right? Let us say I have an engine like this. Okay. So why I am taking so much of time to explain to you what are all these things is, you have to decide plus or minus based on the crank angle in any given problem. It is not just a plus or a minus for all the problems. Okay. So I am having an engine like this. Okay. This is my connecting rod. This is my crank. This is the axis of reciprocation. For a vertical engine, so this is your theta. For a vertical engine, it's very simple. You can understand this very easily. It is not complicated. When your piston is moving down, that is from a value of theta 0 to 90. When the piston is moving down 0 to 180, when the piston starts moving from here to here, what will happen? Gravity will help the movement of this downward movement of your piston, correct? So therefore, in such cases, I will put a plus symbol in front of the reciprocating parts. Okay, plus WR. For the remaining half of the cycle, for the first half of the cycle, weight of the reciprocating parts will help you because of the downward movement. Gravity will help you. For the remaining half of the cycle, when the piston is moving from bottom to top, gravity will not help you. Therefore, you have to put a minus WR. Clear? Weight is a force. You can directly subtract it from the mass into acceleration force. Okay, right? So net work done force, the FP, FL, load given by the gas pressure, right? So therefore let us see. So hence for a vertical engine configuration, the formula is this. So this is a generic formula. If you have a horizontal engine configuration, your weight will not come into picture because you are not going against gravity. This component will vanish if your engine is a horizontal engine. If it is a vertical engine, then this weight component will come in there. For a theta value of 0 to 180, you will put plus sign for WR because piston is moving from up to down, gravity helps you. Similarly, for a theta value of 180 to 360, your piston is moving from down to up, therefore you put a minus value of WR because gravity is not helping you. You are doing some work and lifting the piston against gravity, therefore that much of work is subtracted from the energy you receive from fuel. For one half of the cycle, gravity helps you. For the other half of the cycle, gravity does not help you. Okay. So that is the end of your FP. So generic formula for FP. So FP equal to piston effort equal to load on the piston due to gas pressure plus or minus inertia plus or minus weight of the reciprocating parts minus frictional force. So one thing I want to summarize here is all these two will always be there. Okay, for all the problems these two will always be there. Okay, this will come only if you have a vertical engine problem. Okay, vertical. So sorry for my handwriting, it is not easy to write with the mouse. So this will come only if the amount of frictional loss is given in the statement of the problem, otherwise it will not come. Okay, so most probably you will be writing only these two things. In case of a vertical engine problem, this one will come. You have to decide whether it is upward motion or downward motion based on the theta and decide this plus or minus, and if the question tells you the loss due to friction, you have to consider this, otherwise this will not come. If you have a horizontal engine, this will not come. Okay, let's keep that in mind. So the general formula is piston effort is equal to load on the piston plus or minus inertia force plus or minus weight of the reciprocating parts minus frictional resistance. This is a general formula. Okay, fine. Let's go to the next item. Forces acting along the connecting rod. A small force polygon is isolated from this entire configuration, having the connecting rod as the hypotenuse. Okay, let us consider this primary triangle. Okay, this entire triangle is taken separated out. This triangle is separated and is kept here. Okay, so if you see the edges of the triangle, you can understand. If you see, so the P is here, this P is here. Okay, similarly this M is here, similarly this O is here. The included angle is the connecting rod inclination angle phi. Phi is here. Okay, so let us understand where did this triangle come from. This is the triangle. Now with this all unnecessary lines eliminated, let's look into the black triangle on the right side. Now what do you see from this? In the above triangle, in the black color triangle on the right side, okay, you just refer to this triangle when I am writing the formula. Look only into this, don't look at this diagram. Okay, I gave this because you have to understand where this originated from, where this one originated from. That's why this is given, otherwise this is not required. Now just look into this. Okay, so now in the above triangle, cos phi, the theta, the angle phi is here. Write the formula for cos phi. Cos phi is adjacent side Fp divided by hypotenuse Fq. Okay, so Fp by Fq. Fp is the force exerted on by the piston effort. So this piston effort is in this direction, because piston effort, the resultant motion is the downward motion of the piston. That is your power stroke. That's how you get a horizontal arrow mark for Fp. Okay, it's understood very clearly. Fp is a horizontal line because your piston is moving in this direction. Resultant motion of the piston is always downward during the power stroke, or rightward in case of a horizontal engine, correct, oriented in this direction. So that is how I get Fp along this direction. Now my connecting rod is here, this is my piston. Okay, this is my piston, connecting rod, this is my gudgeon pin, connecting rod is here. Some force will act along the connecting rod. Now that force is exactly along the hypotenuse of this triangle, correct. So this hypotenuse of this triangle, Fp, Fq. Now I am going to relate them using the connecting rod inclination by writing a cosine function. Cos phi equal to adjacent side. What is the adjacent side of phi? Fp. So adjacent side, always hypotenuse lies on the opposite direction of your right angle. Okay, so this is your hypotenuse. Whichever side in a right angle triangle is exactly opposite to the 90 degree is your hypotenuse. So therefore, if this is your phi and this is your hypotenuse, this is your adjacent side. So cos phi equal to Fp by Fq. Why I am taking so much of time to explain adjacent side, opposite side? Everybody should understand. Okay, even people who are not very strong with the fundamentals, they also should follow this video, so it will be useful for them also. So people who find it very very fundamental and trivial, you can skip the few minutes, past few minutes. Okay, so therefore Fq, I am just cross multiplying from this expression. Okay, just cross multiply, send it this side and bring the cos q to the denominator. So therefore I get an expression for Fq, Fp by cos phi. So Fq equal, I know, I already found out what is Fp, piston effort, in the last slide. So with that, if I divide that by the cos function of the connecting rod inclination angle, I will get what is the force acting on the connecting rod, force acting along the connecting rod. Okay, so I am going to do some mathematics. This is the formula, that's it, right? The formula is over. Now it so happens that in all the problems you will not be in a position to either find the value of phi or either the value of Fp. Something will not be unknown, will not be known always. Okay, so but still you have to find the value of Fq. So we are going to do some mathematical manipulation. So what manipulation I am going to do? We already know this is a basic trigonometric relationship, cos phi equal to root of 1 minus sin square. This we have used in the previous derivation also. This comes from the fact that we, in a reciprocating engine, if you put this, if this is your crank, you put a line here, you always, this side is shared commonly, L sin phi equal to R sin theta. So therefore we established a relationship. Okay, so therefore sin phi equal to sin theta by n. I think you remember that from the last derivation. Therefore here cos phi equal to root of 1 minus sin square phi. That is the actual formula. Cos phi equal to root of 1 minus sin square phi. So in place of sin phi I am writing sin theta by n. That is the only difference here. Okay, in place of sin phi I am writing sin theta by n. Therefore I get a different formula. Cos phi equal to root of 1 minus sin square theta by n square. I am going to put this in this place. Okay, therefore my formula changes. Fq equal to Fp by root of 1 minus sin square theta by n square. That's it. So that is the formula for, you can use both the cases. If you have all the required data, you can use this formula straight away. Otherwise you can use this formula. Both are correct, both are exactly equal to each other. Depends on the case to case basis. Okay, you can make a note of both the formulas. This is also a formula for force acting along the connecting rod, and this is also another formula for, both are exactly mathematically equal. Okay, so two expressions we have, and wherever whichever is suitable we are going to use, right? So that is the end of the second component. Let's do the third component. Thrust on the side walls of the cylinder or normal reaction of the guide bars. So when a piston is moving from left to right and right to left, right to left, left, right to left, alternatively it is reciprocating, naturally some component, normal reaction component, will act on the walls of the cylinder. Let's consider this. Okay, so I have a cylinder wall. This is my cylinder. Okay, my piston is here. The piston is moving very fast up and down. Okay, the connecting rod is here, crank is here, crankshaft is here, reciprocating axis. The connecting rod and the crank are moving around in a very high speed. Piston is moving down, up very fast. So naturally there will be some outward resultant force pointing outward, which tends to move the piston out of the guideways, either in this direction, alternatively during some particular position of the piston crank, during some particular value of theta, some force will act in this wall, some magnitude, the other position this magnitude. Some normal reaction will always exist, because this reciprocating motion is converted into a rotary motion. How does the connecting rod move? The connecting rod moves like this. It occupies various positions. Okay, so like initially the connecting rod was like this, then it was like this, and finally after reaching the maximum diametrical position it starts moving. So due to this there is always a net outward pull on the piston, either in this side or this side. Such component of the engine is called as such component exerted by a piston on the walls of the cylinder is called normal reaction. If you look into this diagram, this normal reaction is given here. It acts perpendicular to the walls of the cylinder or the guide bars. Okay, so that is what I am going to solve for now. It's very simple. Okay, now take this triangle which you have already used in the previous case. Now just write sin phi, because Fn is here. Okay, just write sin phi, opposite side by hypotenuse. Very simple. Okay, so from the triangle, sin phi equal to Fn by Fq, opposite side by hypotenuse, right? Therefore Fn equal to Fq sin phi. Okay, you can just stop it there, or you can write in place of Fq, you can write the formula of Fq, Fp by cos phi into sin phi, correct? Because Fq by cos phi is not, Fp by cos phi is nothing but Fq. I am just substituting what I have derived earlier for Fq in place of Fq. So from this triangle I understand, if I write sin theta for this triangle, I get this sin phi equal to opposite side by hypotenuse. Opposite side is Fn, hypotenuse is Fq, equal to sin theta. Just cross multiply this. So Fn equal to Fq sin phi. So instead of Fq, what you have already derived, Fq equal to Fp by cos phi. Put it here, Fp by cos phi sin theta, correct? Now I can club these two things, correct? Sin phi by cos phi is nothing but tan phi, Fp tan phi. So Fn equal to normal reaction of the guide bars equal to Fp tan phi. The fourth component, crank pin effort and thrust on the crankshaft bearing. These two things are always dealt hand in hand. They are done derived together because these are the two components of FQ. Forces acting on the connecting rod are resolved into two components. One which is perpendicular to the movement of the connecting rod, the other is a parallel to the crank, to the crank axis, parallel to the tangential to the crank axis, radial to the crank axis. Okay. Forces acting on the connecting rod may be resolved into two components. That is why you are seeing both of them together. Okay. Component FQ perpendicular to the crank is known as crank pin effort. Okay. The component which acts on the radius of the dotted circle, imaginary circle that you generate, the radius, the circle traced by your crank when it rotates. So that circle which is parallel to the radius of such a circle is called the thrust on the crankshaft bearing. Okay, let us take a minute here. I will explain to you what is this. Let's forget all other parts of the engine. I just have a connecting rod and some force is acting on the connecting rod. There is a pin here, big end of the connecting rod, which is getting connected to a crank. This crank is getting connected to a crankshaft. Okay, this force, now let us say this is the path traced by your crank, the crank circle. Okay, for entire 360 degree, this is your reciprocation axis. Now at any given instant, the force exerted by the piston on the connecting rod is transferred to this crank, and while getting transferred, this force will be transferred into two components. One which is tangential to this circle, dotted circle, the other will be parallel to this radius of this circle, and this thing will be your hypotenuse. If you move all these things, you will see. So if you look in the diagram, what they would have done, they would have extended this line and they would have done two components like this. One component is tangent to this circle. Okay, maybe this diagram is not correct. One component of this FQ, this is FQ, force in the connecting rod, which is pushing your crank. Okay, now this force is getting distributed in two types. The connecting rod force, which is going to push your crank to move along the circle, will one of those components will be a tangent to the circle, the other component will be along the radius of the circle. Therefore what they would have done in your book, they would have, I'm sorry for the geometry of this figure, they would have extended this FQ, okay, and then they would have done one tangent to the dotted circle and one along the radius of the dotted circle. This force, which is acting inwards towards the center of the circle, dotted circle traced by your crank, will jerk the crankshaft from its bearings. It is going to push, it's going to give a load on the bearing. This component which is perpendicular, which is tangential to this crank circle, is actually driving your crank to rotate. It is the useful work. FT is the useful work, FB is the undesired result of the useful work. Okay, so let's go back to the diagram. So now if you see here, if I put a dotted circle for the path traced by your crank, so this is your tangential component, okay, crank pin effort or whatever, and this is your radial component. These two are components of FQ. So what they do, they just extend this line, connecting rod is further extended beyond its end, and these two components are represented as forces. This force is going to jerk your crankshaft bearing and disturb your crankshaft. This force is going to provide the effective torque for propelling your crank along the circular path. Okay, just keep that in mind. Now we will derive the formula required. So the FQ, perpendicular component of FQ, which is a tangent to your crank circle, is a crank pin effort. Okay, So the component of FQ parallel to is known as the thrust on the crankshaft bearing, which is what you have seen until now. So you see the diagram. So if I put this dotted circle traced by the crank tip, everything will become clear to you. Okay, now this tangential component will be like this when the crank comes here, and it will be like this when the crank comes here, and it will be like this when the crank comes here. It keeps changing the direction, but always it remains a tangent to the circle, this Ft. Therefore your crank is propelled in the rotation direction. Okay, but what about this Fb? It always, this is your crankshaft, right? It always tries to pull the crankshaft out of its bearing. It acts in such a direction, which is an undesirable result. Okay, so now we are going to derive two expressions for this. I am going to derive an expression for Ft and Fb with Fq. Okay, one expression for this and another expression for this. Now let us I am going to tell you how did this angle come, so that you have to understand every step of this derivation. Okay, now I have just redrawn the triangles in the second figure. If you see, at the total sum of all the angles in a triangle is 180. So if this is phi, if this is theta, this triangle PO, so P is here, this triangle is drawn here. Okay, the same triangle, this red outline triangle is here. It has one end, this phi is here, okay, and theta is here. So remaining angle is 180 minus theta plus phi, correct? That is a subtended angle here. Okay, so this is 180 minus theta plus phi. That is very easy to understand. Now if you look, I am going to extend this line further. What is this angle? This is 180 degree, correct? 180 degree. Therefore the remaining angle here is 180 minus this entire thing, 180 minus theta plus phi. So that's what is already written here. If you see, 180 minus, since this entire thing is 180 degree, okay, so I want to find out what is this value. So which is 180 minus this angle, whatever is in the inside. Okay, so 180 minus, what is the angle inside? 180 minus theta plus phi. So this 180 and 180 will get cancelled. The remaining thing will be theta plus phi. Theta plus phi is the angle here. Okay, so that is theta plus phi. Now I am going to do a line perpendicular to this line. Let's do a perpendicular line to this. See, these two may appear perpendicular here, but it is not exactly perpendicular. Let's do a perpendicular line. Okay, so let's look into this figure. Let us say this is 90 degree and this is theta plus phi. The entire thing is 90. Therefore this is 90 minus theta plus phi. That is the entire idea of explaining to you how did this 90 minus theta plus phi came. Okay, 90 minus theta plus phi. Just to make you clear how did that 190 minus theta plus phi came here, I have given some intermediate diagrams, right? Just understand that 90 minus theta plus phi, how did this come? Okay, just remember that angle. Now we are going to look into that only small. Now the Ft and Fb are derived only considering this triangle. After you have understood this is 90 minus theta plus phi, forget everything else. This is not required. Okay, now we are going to derive only with this triangle. Only this triangle is required. Okay, now let us move on. I am taking that smaller portion of the triangle. Okay, so this is the place where your connecting rod and the crank gets joined. Connecting rod is here, crank is here. Okay, piston is here. This is the extended triangle, right? Now into this triangle you come. We have already seen how did this come. Now I am going to write expression for Ft and Fb. Fq is already known to me. I initially derived it. Okay, so now in the above series of figures, explain the angles subtended between various vertices of the triangles. Okay, now let us write a cosine relationship in this triangle. Just by looking into this blue triangle, can you tell me where is the 90 degree? Okay, since Ft and Fb are the two components of Fq, therefore invariably the 90 degree should be here, because they are the two components. They will always be perpendicular to each other. Horizontal component, vertical component, 90 degrees here. Therefore this is your hypotenuse. Hypotenuse is Fq. Now write cos theta. cos phi equal to ft by fq, adjacent by opposite, correct? Ft by fq, cos of what? Cos of 90 minus theta plus phi, because 90 minus theta plus phi is the included angle. Cos of 90 minus theta plus phi equal to adjacent side, cos of this angle equal to adjacent side by hypotenuse. So cos of 90 minus theta plus phi equal to ft by fq. Okay, but I know that from the basic trigonometric formulae, I know that cos 90 minus theta is also written as sin theta. Okay, so therefore this becomes sin theta plus phi. Sin theta plus phi equal to ft by fq. Just cross multiply this. What will it become? Ft equal to therefore it changes. Ft equal to fq into sin theta plus phi. I have just cross multiplied. I have rewritten this as sin theta plus phi, and I have brought this fq to the front. Cross multiplication. Therefore it becomes ft equal to fq into sin theta plus phi. Okay. So in place of fq, you put the already known formula for fq that you have already derived earlier in the same some previous slides, some few slides ago. If you see, I would have derived that fq equal to fp by cos phi. Put that fp by cos phi in this cloud marked formula of ft. Okay, so here in this place you just put fq equal to fp by cos phi. Okay, what will happen? So ft equal to fp by cos phi into sin theta plus phi. Okay, so that is the expression for ft. What is ft? Crank pin effort is nothing but ft, which is propelling your crankshaft, crank to go around the 360 degree. So ft equal to fp by cos phi sin theta plus phi. That is the end of this. Let's move on to do fb, the other one. Thrust on the crankshaft bearings. Thrust on the crankshaft bearings is fb. Okay. So in the triangle, so right, similarly ft was on the adjacent side of this triangle, so you have written cos theta. Now fb is on the opposite side of the triangle, of the opposite side of subtended angle, therefore write sin phi. Sin 90 minus theta plus phi equal to opposite side by hypotenuse. Sin 90 minus theta plus phi equal to fb by fq. Okay, so similarly sin 90 minus theta is cos theta. I can cross multiply this. What will happen? Next step, fb by fq cos theta plus phi. So cross multiply. What will happen? So therefore here this becomes fq cos, this will come here. Okay, fq cos theta plus phi equal to fb. Therefore fb equal to, in place of fq I have written this. This is nothing but fq. Okay, so this is nothing but sin 90 minus theta plus phi, because sin 90 minus theta is cos theta. Okay, so theta, this entire thing is I am telling as theta, entire thing. Sin 90 minus this entire angle equal to cos this entire angle. So that's how I have written cos here. Similarly, instead of fq which I have cross multiplied here, I have put fp by cos phi into cos theta plus phi. Okay, so that is the formula for fb. So let's note down this as the expression for fb. Okay, so 4 parts are over. Now I am going to derive the final end outcome of the last component of the forces acting on the engine because of the various forces, various combustion activities or movement arising. The last one is the crank effort or turning moment, torque on the crankshaft. That is the final outcome I want out of an engine. Why do you run an engine? I want torque out of the engine. That's why I am running the engine. Okay, so for that, so turning moment is the product of crank pin effort and the radius. What is torque? Formula for torque? Force into radius. Which force? That force which is tangential to your crank pin circle, that force ft into radius of the crank pin. Very simple, isn't it? ft into r. A very very simple formula for ft. I mean very very simple for torque. Formula for torque is ft into r. But most probably you will not have this ft value in your problem, so that you cannot directly solve ft into r. So for most other cases where you do not have a direct value, I am going to do some manipulations of this. Okay, we know that ft is equal to fp sin theta plus phi divided by cos phi from previous slides which we have derived. Okay, so therefore multiply this fp sin theta plus phi into cos phi into r. Okay, this ft, instead of ft I am putting this here. Okay, so that is what this is. Very simple. So now what I am going to do, next thing, I am going to expand this. See, why we do all this is to get a simpler formula, mathematical manipulation. Otherwise the formula is already over here. Okay, we are going to do get a better way of doing it, simpler way of doing it, so that directly I can find a torque from the given data of a question. Otherwise every time I have to find ft. Okay, so sin, I am going to expand this sin theta plus phi using the expression sin a plus b equal to sin a cos b plus cos a sin b. This is a very old, age old trigonometric relationship that you all know. Now put this here in the numerator. Okay, so then what happens? So fp into sin a sin b, sin a cos b plus cos a sin b. So what is your a? So this is my a, this is my b. When I look at this formula, okay, sin theta plus phi equal to sin theta cos phi, cos theta sin phi. So entirely multiplied by fp, sin theta cos phi, cos theta sin phi, by expanding using this formula. Okay, so divided by cos phi into r. The other things remain same. I have just expanded this. All the other components of the equation remain same. fp is in the front, r is in the back, cos phi is in the denominator. No change is there. Okay, now what I am going to do, I am going to split this into two components. Split the denominator into two components. Okay, how am I splitting? Club this as one equation. Okay, multiplied by fp, and club this as one equation, multiplied by because fp is common for both, so I am splitting it, reverse of LCM. Okay, how you club fractions by taking LCM, they do the reverse. I am splitting it because you have a plus symbol in the middle, you can easily split it, no problem. Okay, so fp sin theta cos phi, so fp sin, just split the fraction. Here you will get one cos phi in the denominator and here one cos phi. Write it, fp sin theta cos phi by cos phi, fp cos theta sin phi by cos phi. I can directly cancel these two, correct? I can directly, that's what I have done here. Okay, if you see here, I have directly cancelled cos phi and cos phi. Here this sin phi and cos phi are clubbed together and written as tan phi. Okay, so therefore what happens, after cancelling this out and I am making this tan theta, I am rewriting the equation. Torque is equal to, this fp is maintained as a common factor outside again, fp. So take this fp common outside because both terms you have fp. Take this fp as common term outside. What will happen? This fp will vanish because it is outside. fp into sin theta plus cos theta tan phi multiplied by radius. There is radius is always there. Don't forget the radius. So fp into sin theta plus cos phi tan theta into r. Okay. Let's keep this as equation number 1.15. Okay. So these numbers are in coherence with your workbook, so I am not changing any numbers. So to make the above equation homogeneous, which equation 1.15, so I want to entirely make it in terms of theta. Okay, so that I can, when finding out power or whatever, you will not have always both the values of theta or phi given in the question, only one will be given. So make this homogeneous in terms of theta. I am going to use this relationship, L sin phi equal to r sin theta, which we already used. So therefore sin phi equal to sin theta by n, put it in this place. So cos phi equal to root of 1 minus sin square phi, which is root of 1 minus sin square theta by n square. Now take LCM and inside the square root take LCM, n square minus sin square theta by n square. Take the bottom denominator n square outside. So this is pretty easy, you can work this out. I don't want to explain it again and waste time. We have already done this earlier. Okay, so 1 by n root of n square minus sin square theta is nothing but cos phi. Okay, so now tan phi equal to sin theta by sin phi by cos phi. So sin theta by n, instead of sin phi I am writing sin theta by n. So because of the triangles formulation, similar triangles principle which we have already seen. So in place of sin phi, write this sin theta by n here. Instead of tan phi, I know that tan phi equal to sin phi by cos phi. This is a general formula. In place of sin phi, write sin theta by n. In place of the cos phi, write this. Since cos phi is in the denominator, I am making a reciprocal of this and I am multiplying. Sin theta by n multiplied by reciprocal of this equation, n by root of sin square. Okay. So therefore sin theta, this n and n will get cancelled. So what will happen? Sin theta by root of n square minus sin square theta. For tan phi, put this tan phi in equation 1.15. What is equation 1.15? See here, in equation 1.15, to eliminate this tan phi, I am doing this entire exercise. Okay, instead of this tan phi, I am going to write. Okay, I am going to write what I am going to write. Instead of tan phi, I am going to write this. Okay. So this is my 1.15 equation which I have derived in the previous slide. So T is equal to Fp sin theta plus Fp sin theta plus cos theta into tan phi into R. So T is equal to, in place of tan phi, you just substitute directly here. In place of tan phi you put this, therefore this equation will change. Say everything else remains same. Fp into sin theta plus cos theta into sin theta by n square minus sin square theta into R. Okay, so Fp into, take the R to the front, Fp into R into cos theta sin theta by, so I am just clubbing these two into the numerator. I am taking this cos theta also here because they are in multiplication. Okay, cos theta sin theta n square minus sin square theta. Okay, so sin 2a is 2 sin a cos a. Okay, so therefore sin a cos a, sin 2a equal to 2 sin a cos a. So therefore sin a cos a equal to sin 2a by 2. Just bring this 2 here. So this sin 2 theta by 2 equal to sin theta cos theta, I am going to put here. This is nothing but sin 2 theta by 2. Okay, so all these are simplification. So what will happen to the torque equation? Fp into R into sin theta plus, instead of cos theta sin theta, write sin 2 theta by 2. Okay, so instead of this I am writing this. Okay, so Fp equal to Fp into R into sin theta plus sin 2 theta by 2 root of n square minus n square. This is the final torque equation. Just, it's very simple to understand. If you just play the video again and see, all steps are very simple. Finally you have to by heart this formula for doing the problems. Okay, so here we have an important note. In most cases the value of sin square theta happens to be negligible. Therefore what happens is this term will vanish. Okay, this term will vanish, become very much negligible. Therefore root of n square will become 2n. What will happen to your torque formula? Your torque formula will get simplified. So this root of n square will become 2n in the denominator. Therefore your formula will change. This is practically used in the problem solving. Okay, in your problem solving we are not going to use this formula for torque, we are going to use this. So torque is equal to Fp into R into sin theta plus sin 2 theta by n, because of the negligible value of sin square theta. Sin theta itself is very small. When I do a square of that, it becomes very, very small. If I neglect it, it becomes just root of n square. Okay, so I can take a square root. It becomes just n in the denominator with the 2 in the front. Right? So that's the end of your torque equation. So now let us refresh all the formulas that you have seen so far, so that we can directly move into solving problems in this topic. Okay, everything put together, not only this derivation, all the formulas you need to do the problems in the coming topic. Obliquity ratio n is equal to L by R. This you have already seen in the previous topic itself. Okay, general formula for angular velocity 2 pi n by 60. Load on a double acting piston is P1A1 minus P2A2. Okay, load on the piston single acting P1A, where this A2 is A1 minus small a, connecting rod area. that you have to remember. Okay. So inertia force F1 is equal to mr into ar. So that is, in place of ar you put acceleration formula, mr omega square r cos theta plus cos 2 theta by n. So thrust on the connecting rod Fq equal to Fp by cos phi. Piston effort for a horizontal engine, Fp is the net load on the piston. Okay, piston effort Fp, net load plus or minus inertia force. Okay, so positive sign used when the piston is retarding. For the inertia component I am telling. Okay, when your theta is between 0 to 90, your piston is accelerating, therefore your inertia will be a negative sign. And when your piston is retarding, you have a positive sign for inertia. When your piston is accelerating, you have a negative sign for inertia. Okay, so as a general rule, for a theta of 0 to 90, you get a acceleration of the piston, so therefore d negative inertia force for 0 to 90 theta. 90 to 180 theta, your piston is going to slow down and stop, therefore you get a positive inertia. Don't forget this, because why I am telling this to you so many times, you are going to decide the symbol for solving the problem. If you make a wrong judgment, entire problem will be wrong. Frictional resistance is subtracted in both the cases if it is given in the question. For a vertical engine, Fp equal to net load on the piston plus or minus inertia force plus or minus weight of the reciprocating parts. Okay. For a downward movement of the piston, Wr is ordered. For a upward movement of the piston, Wr is subtracted. Right. Thrust on the slide bars, Fn equal to Fq sin phi, that is equal to Fp by cos phi into sin theta. Just note down all these things. Fp by tan phi. So crank pin effort Ft equal to Fp by cos phi into sin theta plus phi, Fq into sin. This is the short form actually. Okay, so this is your short form, and in place I have put the expression for Fq, Fp by cos phi. Both are same, right? So thrust on the crankshaft bearings, Fp cos theta plus phi by cos phi. Turning moment or torque, Ft into r, or another bigger formula, Fp into sin theta plus phi by cos phi into r. So accelerating torque, this torque has multiple formulas, right? Wherever whichever formula is applicable, you can use it. Accelerating torque equal to turning moment minus resisting torque. So this thing you will understand only when we do the problems. This is a theoretical formula. Okay, so just don't worry about this, just make a note of this. Engine power equal to resisting torque into angular velocity. 2 pi n by 60, right? 2 pi n t by 60, where 2 pi n by 60 is omega. So omega into torque, 2 pi n by 60 into torque, 2 pi nt by 60 is the engine power. So moment of inertia, this is a very general formula. Okay, I m k square, this you have already studied in kinematics. Mass of the rotating part, k equal to radius of gyration. So the last formula, accelerating torque equal to I into alpha. So this entire derivation is taken from your Kurmi textbook. So thank you for listening.